Try and redeem the time as much as possible as we continue with the proceedings of the day. Welcome to the Ministry of Transport's engagement with the media. It is also virtual, so we want to greet those who are joining us from their homes, from their workplaces, or wherever you're connecting with us on this day. We thank you so much for availing yourself. We are focusing on the aviation industry as the country continues its gradual reopening of the economy. We know that the aviation space has also opened, and we are seeing further progress in that regard. Minister Mbalula will take us through that, and without wasting much time, Honourable Minister, it's over to you.
Social distance, Ayanda. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen of the press and South Africans across the length and breadth of our country. Good morning to everybody. I know the main focus today is the taxi industry, but as much as we'll cover your questions, we have issued a statement last night with regard to Santaco and NTA public pronouncements, and should there arise any question in this media briefing which is focusing on aviation, we'll be ready to take those questions. On the 30th of May 2020, I announced the opening of domestic air travel for purposes of business and other essential travel, as contained in the directions signed and issued on the same day. These directions were accompanied by guidelines which gave detailed compliance requirements to be adhered to by the civil aviation industry. It has been 3 weeks since the OR Tambo, Kinshasa, Cape Town, and Lanseria international airports have been opened for domestic passenger travel. We have witnessed airlines gradually taking to the skies, mainly through the Phase 1 approved airports. Following the announcement of Phase 1 domestic operations, the airports and airlines submitted their standard operating procedures to the South African Civil Aviation Authority for approval. This was followed by a compliance inspections conducted by the regulator to all our airports. My team and I visited OR Tambo International and Lanseria for a readiness walkabout and monitoring, and were satisfied that the airports were ready for operation. Airlines opened for flight bookings immediately thereafter, and it took them almost 2 weeks to build passenger numbers to at least 50% capacity. On the 5th of June 2020, Cam Air operated its first flight between OR Tambo International Airport and Cape Town, and added Kinshasa International Airport to its schedule on 8 June 2020. Airlink commenced operations on 8 June 2020 between OR Tambo, Cape Town, and Kinshasa International. On 15 June 2020, Fly SA and Mango Airlines commenced flights between the above airports, and the Fly Safari included Lanseria Airport on its schedule. The South African Civil Aviation Authority opened its doors for aviation personnel license examinations on the 8th of June 2020. Aviation training organizations opened their doors to students, which will further allow for more students to finalize their license status. It was critical for us to test the efficiency and impact of the guidelines we issued against the health and safety of the passengers and aviation personnel operating in this space, and we are pleased with the progress we have observed to date. Like any other area, we are making continuous improvement In areas where we observed challenges in consultation with the Department of Health representatives, specifically Port Health, some of these observations include the following. As more airports are opened, this will naturally increase the numbers of passengers at airports, and therefore measures have been put in place to ensure that passengers are prepared for their experience at the airports to avoid congestion, mainly at security checkpoints. Whilst this is work perfectly at the airports currently, it will need to be managed properly as we open more activity. To date, the South African Civil Aviation Authority has received about 117 SOPs from industry, and more than 87 have been approved. Sanitizers are classified as dangerous goods, and the South African Civil Aviation Authority has made provision for carrying of such in limited quantities as a safety measure and in compliance with existing regulations. For the efficient facilitation of passengers at the airports, the operators have urged the flying community to arrive at least 2 hours early to allow for sufficient time to process passengers at the airports, whilst adhering to the screening requirements as per the Department of Health and regulations. The South African Civil Aviation Authority have also reviewed its earlier decision of no catering on board an aircraft by permitting airlines to provide pre-packed meals that must be placed in front of the seat for each passenger before the passenger board the aircraft. This will allow for minimized movement during the flight. Having engaged further with the aviation industry with regards to the observation made during phase 1 of domestic air travel activities, I'm pleased to announce the following relaxations in this sector of transport industry. All international passenger flights are prohibited, except those flights authorized by the Minister of Transport, and together working with DERCO, which flights are permitted only for repatriation of citizens. We have been inundated by such, and we have been in a position to process, and also we have processed flights for medical evacuation of South African citizens who come from abroad, who some of them who have been stranded, some of them have been working abroad, working with the Department of Home Affairs, Department of International Relations, DERCO. We have been able to process those repatriation flights in our country till this far. Domestic passenger flights are permitted subject to the following conditions. In addition to the original 4 airports that are currently operating, the following domestic airports will reopen from the 1st of July 2020. Bramfisher International Airport, Free State, Bloemfontein, Mangaung. Kruger Mpumalanga International Airport, Pietermaritzburg Airport, Port Elizabeth International Airport, Richards Bay Airport, Skukuza Airport, and Upington International Airport. All aerial work to conduct the following will be permitted from the 1st of July 2020. Agricultural spraying, seeding and dusting, cloud spraying, seeding and dusting, culling, construction, aerial harvesting, aerial patrol observation and survey, aerial advertisement, including banner towing and other towing of objects, search and rescue, parachuting, aerial recording by photographic or electronic means, fire spotting, control and fighting, and spraying, seeding or dusting other than for agricultural purposes and clouds. General aviation is permitted for the following purposes: approved regional repositioning flights for all South African and foreign registered aircraft into and from South Africa for return after maintenance and repair, to perform maintenance and repair or to continue with contractual work within South Africa or foreign countries within the region. Exchanging of crew members operating in foreign countries as and when required, and transporting of aviation technicians, mechanics and engineers internationally for essential support and assistance to aircraft. Proficiency flights, provided that the flight is authorized by SACA and remains within the general flying area, airfield or airport boundaries. Recreational aviation is permitted for proficiency flights, provided that the flight is authorized by the South African Civil Aviation Authority and remains within the general flying area, airfield or airport boundaries. All these measures, ladies and gentlemen, are in line with the gradual reopening of our economy as we enter a new normal and journey together towards a healthier, safer, and a more prosperous South Africa. Now, as we open the skies, all of this are being done in consultation with our health authorities, because the enemy that is invincible, that we are fighting, it is essentially a health hazard, running havoc and all of that. And the standards that are approved are standards that are informed by doctors and all health authority people, and they are processed through the national net joints, which is commanded by the South African Defence Force, as well as the South African Police, and also report regularly to the National Command Council. The National Command Council is chaired by the President. And then all ministers responsible for operations in relation to their affected ministries, like ours in transport, report to the Command Council. So nothing in this country is done or processed and implemented without the Command Council. So in this particular instance, we have announced that at level 3, which we are in, we will in phases open up aviation. You will remember we had what we call the golden cycle. The golden cycle is OR Tambo, is Cape Town, and as well as Kinshasa. Now we are expanding to other provinces, and there are others that are included, not included here. And the reasons that they are not included, I kept on speaking about the Western Cape, the Eastern Cape, and in particular George, is because they don't meet the minimum standards that are overseen by the South African Aviation Authority, and in particular the Department of Health in those particular airports. So that is why they will not be here. East London will not be in this phase. It was supposed to be here. It means we are not ready with regard to that. And then George as well. I've been in communication with the Minister of Economy in the Western Cape about George, and I'm very sorry to come back without George in this phase. And then the other phase will follow once all measures at the airports in those areas are basically intact. And then this is what we are basically following. So it doesn't just happen that we open up. And other people have actually questioned, why do you have 100% on air in the airlines? It's because the airlines can absorb that. Because in the airlines, all our airlines are fitted with HEPA, high efficiency particulate air filters. So because the airline is unlike a taxi, once you are in it, you fly, and therefore for 2 hours, and then you are compressed inside it. So the filter is able to eat any form of virus, including coronavirus, inside the aircraft. And that's what actually happens here. Whereas a taxi, in technical basis, can go a distance and many other ways and all of that with windows open and stuff like that. And the only self-defense is when you are fitted with your mask, so that when you cough next to the person next to you, or you do anything, that you are you are able to be protected, but at the same time you've got your mask on. So these are very technical issues that are provided for by health standards in our country, and up until this far, I don't remember us having, since we opened the skies, having any case of coronavirus in our skies reported domestically and all of that. And the health standards have been kept to the latter. And people have been asking, why do you keep social distance at the airport and then yet not inside when you are inside the aeroplane? And those things have been explained, that the situation inside the aeroplane of you contracting any form of virus, you are well protected rather than when you are actually outside. And that is why even when you are inside, you are required to do that. You will remember the big debate about SAFE, when they said that if you want to keep social distance inside, you must pay more. And I explained again that issue, that it is up to the marketing standards of the airline to do that. But at the same time, we are not promoting that. It is the airlines that promote that. If your pocket is a bit hefty, you can do that. But at the end of the day, the standards that we have introduced and put in place inside the airlines as agreed by the Department of Health and even the health practitioners have ensured that there is maximum safety on board in terms of the airlines. And besides, you don't travel unless if you are on business mission. So the going up and down, visiting a friend is discouraged. Is discouraged, totally discouraged. And we have been forewarned that when we reach July and when we reach August, our numbers are going to go up. Let's repeat again. We were warned when the lockdown was introduced. We were warned by both the scientists, and when the president spoke, he said that in July and August, that is our dark days. And the president kept on saying that the dark days are still coming. Whether when they come, we'll be able to withstand the storm like other countries which were basically affected, is going to depend on us. It means I must play my part. Nowadays, you hear of your friend that you know very well is infected. Is coming close to home. It's coming close to home every day. Somebody you work with wake up and affected. And that is why we hold these virtual press conferences, because we need to keep the standards where we are, because South Africa's numbers are growing exponentially. And we have been in this through goodwill, not through enforcement. That it is a clampdown, it is out of the conscience of our people and their understanding, full understanding that we have been where we are. There's no state of emergency in South Africa. We've got the disaster management in our country. And the disaster management has been signed into law, and this is what has been implemented. So we thank all South Africans who do their part, ensuring that it starts with me and you for us to actually be safe in this fight. Pandemics are not going to end. They will always be with us. They don't come with governments. They come with human beings. They become atrocities that befell nations. Somebody can go to Brazil and come back with something, and then it will spread in the country. Our health practitioners over the years in our country have fought a difficult battle, listeriosis, everything, and push it back. Now, this pandemic is coming hard and fast. People get cured, but people die. So, sometime you will be infected, but you will never survive. And then we will die. Others have actually passed on. And the World Health Organization have put up the standards that we need to follow. And then we don't have any self-defense at the present moment except to follow the standards that are defined for us. So if there was anything medical-wise that we need to follow, it will be announced and we'll know about it. Now, in transport, as I conclude to open for questions, we have transport in air, we've got transport on the ground, we've got transport in the air, we've got transport in maritime, we've got transport. That is the backbone and the catalyst of the economy. So if transport collapses, the economy collapses. And our economy has been hard hit heavily in this period, precisely because of measures we have had to undertake. Hard hit in the form of people losing their jobs, hard hit in the form of businesses collapsing, and all of that. And in the aviation sector that we are talking about, we don't talk about Kulula. We talk about Chem Air and the rest. Kulula is on the mend, is facing liquidation. And Undercom Air. And these are the basic difficult economic things that we are addressing, challenges that we are addressing on a daily basis that we are faced with. So we wish to thank everybody and the understanding of companies who come to the party on a daily basis to address this situation we are faced with, which is COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is now open for questions. Minister, you did mention that this is a virtual briefing. However, one or two of the journalists asked if they could join us in person today to pose a question or two, and they promised to observe social distancing as well as the other regulations. And on that ground, we did permit that handful of journalists to be with us today. But if I may take some questions that are coming to us virtually, Minister, the first one coming from Hopolang from The Citizen. Hopolang would like to know, is the minister considering enforcing the law on lawless taxi operators who will disobey lockdown regulations by filling taxis at 100% capacity? Thank you so much. So that question, Minister, about taxi operators who insist on 100% capacity and whether or not you will be enforcing the law on what Hopolang calls lawless taxi operators. The second part of Hopolang's question states that they just contacted JMPD and they are awaiting a directive from government on what to do next. Perhaps if you could share what government plans to do next. Then we go to Linda. Linda is from Newsroom. Minister, Linda would like to know, firstly, what laws government can use to stop taxi associations from going ahead with the 100% capacity? What laws can the government use to stop the taxis from going ahead with 100% capacity? And then number two, is it safe to say that the minister has lost his grip on the taxi industry? Is it safe to say that the minister has lost his grip on the taxi industry? Those are the two questions that have come in. I'm going to allow Barry from ENCA to also ask his question. Barry promised that he's got a booming voice and can project. Go ahead, Barry.
morning, Minister. Barry Bateman from ENCA. On this, thank you for that briefing on the aviation industry. I think it's quite clear what is being opened up and relaxed. My question relates to the taxi industry. I've been out since early this morning. I went to the Bosman Street taxi rank. This is a long-distance taxi rank. And there I spoke to several taxi drivers. And what they're raising is their concerns that the 70% just does not, it's not viable for their small businesses. And the government coming with its support package, although welcome, is simply not enough to be able to cover their costs. They're running at a loss. Do you appreciate the difficult position that the taxi industry, or these drivers, the small guys on the ground, are experiencing in trying to be able to run a business, which are running at a loss at the current state? Are you not open to their commitments to ensuring the highest levels of standard in their vehicles? And do you also perhaps appreciate that what has happened now between the department and the organization is it's put you guys on a collision course with the law enforcement agencies in the middle here, with the one saying we're going to pack our taxis and law enforcement having to enforce them? Isn't that not an opportunity or a place where a flashpoint could result in wider disruptions to the economy? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barry. As you had anticipated, Minister, much of the questions are due about the taxi industry. You may take to the podium and address the nation on that regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Khupulang. Taxi operators, 100% lawlessness of the taxi industry. It is not important in this time to... I've been on the ground myself talking to operators, and they gave me a very important feedback. And some of them said to me, Minister, we hear you about 5,000. And some of our leadership saying what we qualify for is 20,000. But to us, that is not the issue. The issue is that our taxis, as we speak, are facing a challenge of being taken away by the banks. Can't you talk to the banks? Because we have sacrificed. During the period of the lockdown, we are a highly not formalized industry, and the laws of the country in the environment of the COVID-19 will not favor us, like they will favor other industries, who their own industries pay tax, who in terms of their own industries, they are highly formalized. And in these particular instances, they will qualify for things like UIF. They will qualify for what other industries will qualify for in terms of intervention and relief, loans from CIFA and all of that in terms of small, medium enterprises. We in the taxi industry don't qualify for that. There's nobody who's going to give us a loan. All what is happening is that we still have got to go on and pay. So can you address those challenges? So this question is interlinked to the point that you are raising, Barry, about the fact that do we appreciate the difficulty that the taxi industry is facing? Yes, we do appreciate. What are we going to do about it? We are scratching our heads every day about how we go about, and that is why we introduced, among others, a taxi relief fund model, which is ex gratia. Ex gratia means something that you pay without being obligated. And in this instance, it is once off. You are not obligated to give the relief. You give it anyway, even if you are not obligated, and you do it once off. It's not something that you're going to do it every week in and week out. And that is why we don't call it a fund or a compensation. We call it ex gratia. It is an intervention in the Sesotho way of saying things, Kimohao is gracious thing you do. Because you know that very well that the taxi industry is not formalized, and it will be very difficult for the taxi industry to basically enjoy all the things that other industries will basically enjoy. And that is where we are actually heading to in South Africa today, to address all of those particular issues, that is formalization and that is subsidization of the taxi industry. The taxi industry is the backbone of our nation. Majority of our people, the working class of our country, are using taxis to go to work. And yet these taxis are not subsidized. Now here comes Corona. Nobody planned for Corona. We are in the process of discussing with the taxi industry exactly the same issues. Formalization, how is it going to take place? Government subsidy, how is it going to take place? If you agree, my plan is that by next year, January 1st, next year, 1st of April, we should sign an agreement even before then, but get in the next financial year, subsidy being introduced for the taxi industry. Can we achieve these things by a state of lawlessness? No. There is leadership. Leadership must lead in difficult times. They are feeling the burning from the members who are demanding this and that. They cannot all the time, when there is a problem, call for the streets to be rendered ungovernable. You are setting yourself in collusion with law enforcement, which is the state. In that instance, the law will have to be maintained. You are daring the law. You are challenging the authority of the state. There is no need to do that. There is no need to do that. I've explained to the taxi industry, and indeed, I could not meet with them without substantive issues on the table that I agreed. I'm going to seek mandate on them and report back to them. I was here. I said I'm going back to the National Command Council. The taxi industry have asked me to review 100%. I'm the first person to come up with 100% fill up of the taxis. Santaco attacked me left and right on 100%. South African citizens said, what is Mbalula smoking? And at that time, I had not even subjected 100% to the National Command Council. I went back in the afternoon, did not even wait for it to be implemented. I retracted that honorably. I said, no, let's wait. They said we must stick with 70%. They came to me with a request that, Minister, can you look at this? I have been a proponent. I am the supporter. I'm the person who put relief fund on the table of government. Nobody else, it's me. Who said that from 500 billion rand, please give something to the taxi industry because of its difficult position. Even if it is not formalized, but put something aside. They then said to me, we reject it, it is not enough. I went back and forth. And then I came back with the feedback. I said, we can't cross the line. This is it. And then among others, it included the fact that I needed to go back and negotiate the conditionalities that come with the distribution or disbursement of this 1.135 billion to the taxi industry. And then I said, let me go and come back. Yes, but to come back, we will come back once NCCC have actually met on the review of the regulations. The minister does not take unilateral, does not sit down and take a unilateral decision that the regulations must be reviewed. And now you are putting a gun on the government on 100%. When government has always been the ally and is ready to review the regulations, even at level 3. And I don't know who said we are fighting with the taxi industry. Do I want law enforcement to clamp down on the taxi industry? No. Can the taxi industry promote anarchy and bring the country to a standstill? Yes, they can. Can the law be exerted and the authority of the state? Yes. There will be collision. Over what? Over something that we can resolve. That is absolutely unnecessary. Collusion over what? Over 100%. Over interprovincial travel. We've got to look at those issues. It was very difficult for us to open for aviation, which cannot be compared with the taxi industry. Very difficult. How are we going to take to the skies? What do we need to do? We crack our head. We bring DOH on board. And then they advise. Now it's been 2 weeks, holding our breath. Are we going on? And then we're opening others. We're putting measures at the airports. That's what we do. Obviously, government has got to come to the party very hard on this 100%, if we were to agree on that, which we in the Department of Transport, we have taken the proposal already to net joints. And then we've taken the proposal to NCCC. And it's not only transport on the table at the NCCC. There are many other industries that want to be opened up. Restaurants want to open up. And then government has got to have a holistic view. The statistics are going up. They are not going down. They are going up exponentially. Now, if you open the other and then you leave the other, you've got to look at that. Of course, the skies are opened for business, for travel, and then the taxis on the ground, interprovincial, can be opened. Okay? And I've said to them, these things can be resolved. Is the taxi industry not suffering the loss in terms of the lockdown and all of that? It has. I understand it deep down, what it means, that particular loss. People are unable to pay their taxes as we speak. Taxes have been taken away as a result of their sacrifice because of coronavirus. So we've got to help them with regard to that. 100% now it is a discourse. People are saying taxi industry does not respect human life. Now, because of we are going to war on things when we are not supposed to go to war. President of Santaco, Mr. Bosch, has got my phone. If I'm lying, ask my wife. He wakes me up at 6 a.m. and we talk. If there is something he does not understand from me, he's older than me. I'm very young from Tate Bosch as a minister. He can talk to me. I give him all the respect. So the question that we don't talk and all of that doesn't arise. The point is that I've got to come back with substantive matters. Even this afternoon, Tate Bosch represents these people. I ask him all the time, let us not go to this direction. We differ all the time. He represents the taxi industry, is passionate about it. And we talk about issues. And so we can't talk past each other. There is no war here. And there is no need to fight. We must talk. We must engage. Government must at all material times represent the interest of our people. That's why we are elected as government, as politicians, as public representatives, to prioritize the interest of the people. So every decision we take at the present moment is going to be informed by that primarily. But secondly, we've got to also take interest of the taxi industry at heart. And we've got to do that. It is important that at all times we need to talk. So there's no need to take to the streets. Absolutely no need. There is no need. I went to Soshanguve last week I had a conversation with taxi operators. Others came and disrupted that conversation. Now, we've got to keep on this conversation and talk about our issues. The attitude of South Africans towards the taxi industry must be changed. Taxi industry must change for the better. And I've put it on the agenda that we are going to work very hard. And I've got hope that we are going to achieve our desired goals to formalize the industry, but we will not formalize the industry and impose anything on the industry. We will talk to the captains of the industry. We will talk to everybody that need to be talked to. And we will not simply run roughshod over the industry on solutions. That's why we've got a plan for the INDAB to discuss formalization, subsidization. And we need to address those particular issues. It means reprioritization of our resources so that we back up this important industry that I characterize in economic terms as a sunrise industry. If taxi industry contribute 40 billion rand, how does that translate into the pocket of Edward, of Mzwake, who owns a taxi and who has just been retrenched last week and bought a taxi? How do we formalize? How do we get them to become beneficiaries in this growing economy of ours? And this is a huge industry that we basically need to support. And I've raised these issues in the boardrooms, and it is really unfortunate that every time we've got to resolve issues, we've got to fight. So, to summarize it all, the taxi industry, we care about it, and at the same time, the difficult issues that arise as a result of COVID-19 have not helped us to fast-track our model of ensuring that the taxi industry is formalized, and we have big discussions around it. It does not help us. COVID-19 have just thrown us into disarray. And so it has affected our plans, which plans we are now beginning to resuscitate and bring them into action. Have we lost the grip on the taxi industry? I can't characterize that to say we have lost the grip or not lost the grip. What I'm saying is that can we be rational? Can we basically open up? And I found people in the taxi industry who are very reasonable. I found people who understand and who have been in this industry, some of them long before we were born, and have been in this industry for decades and for years. And at this industry, they've been, standing and fighting and all of that from days of apartheid till today. They've taken kids to school through this industry. So the democratic dispensation must serve them, but equally themselves, they must come to the party, and like we do. And so I don't see any grip being lost. I see points of differences. Which points of differences have not been too much far from each other, except that we've been disorganized by COVID-19. Personally, I'm not prepared to go to war over nothing. I'm prepared to go to war over something that I know indeed require us to go to war. And they will argue with me that we are fighting because we feel the pinch where we are. I agree with them. But there is no need for us to go to war. We need goodwill more than ever before. 70% not viable. They are correct. 70% is not viable, Barry, in terms of the long distance. Do I appreciate the difficulties? Yes, we do. Does this set us on a collision course? Yes. Like I said, it's a collision course we don't need. My appeal to the taxi industry is that let us not every time we differ or are dissatisfied about something promise war. It's not necessary, absolutely. And then dare the state and then say that we will show you our muscle, where the taxi industry will occupy the streets. We will render this country ungovernable. We've got the capability to do that. You can only take to the streets if somebody is not prepared to talk to you. I'm ready to talk to the taxi industry. I'm resolving their issues that they've raised with me. I must be guided by the NCCC. NCCC met last week. It did not meet on Tuesday, the date that I said after the NCCC, I'll go back to them. It did not meet. It met on Thursday. On Thursday, the issues of the taxi industry were reflected on the agenda, and the NCCC resolved that they will further consider those issues this coming week on Wednesday. That is when this week, when NCCC have pronounced on the travel capacity and all of that, that I will be able, with substantive issues, to bring on the table of the taxi industry. And I instructed my office to basically communicate the message that, among others, because of unforeseen circumstances, but this is the message. There is nothing that has come up fundamentally, right, out of those particular meetings. So the NCCC will meet, will consider, and which I think it will be favorable. But it will look at all of these issues conclusively, and at the same time to say, how do we look at them as a package? How do we preserve lives in the taxis as our people embark on their different journey and all of that? Now, it can't be a hurry decision. After 2 weeks, we've got to reverse it. Like alcohol. Everybody says that we have made a mistake by opening up alcohol. We can't. Tobacco industries are up in arms. They fight over their cigarette. They want to make profits. Fine and good, government stand its ground in courts and fight for the people, because it is said that cigarette is not healthy. Even the economics of it, that those who make money are in the underground, then it undermines even the revenue that is a shortfall in our budget without actually being closed. People selling cigarettes illegally in our streets. Do you think that government loves that? Who are the beneficiaries of all of this? And then alcohol and all of that. So stricter conditions, government consider all of these things all the time in terms of levels and so on. So every step of the way is closely looked at. At the end of the day, it doesn't become a decision of one minister. But I can tell you right now that my decision and what I've proposed is that we must relook at this thing. And then basically not a demand. Because taxi industry is heavily affected. But over and above that, we've got this challenge. If we've got this, how do we address some of the things that arise out of the challenge that we are facing? To defend the nation and to work together. So when I conclude on this particular matter, I'm saying that there is absolutely no need to enforce 100% on people if they decided to go on an unlawful route and so on. But there is no need to defy any law, the directions that we have actually issued. I, for one, I will not be in the streets to say to the taxi industry, hey, because these matters are on the agenda. If they were not on the agenda, it will be a different case altogether. So I've brought them on the agenda. It's just that they have not been resolved. So there is no need to take to the streets and fight over these particular issues. And maybe that moment to fight and to take to the streets and to do all of these things that people are talking about is a moment in history that is yet to come. But for now, it is absolutely not necessary. The taxi industry in the formalization will bring its issues on the agenda. We look at them. And then government will explain subsidization, where we come from and how. And we have said that we are ready to subsidize. The taxi industry is not subsidized, and yet it is carrying millions of our people. It's not subsidized. So we need to address that. But you can't address subsidy to the exclusion of formalization, or neither formalization to the exclusion of subsidization, and then begin to define the content of that formalization. When it comes to the institutions of the rule of law that guide us in this country, for everybody who contribute to the economy of the country. And we accept that this is an informal business and that we need to consider it over the years. So I am all ears, and I am going to work with the taxi industry, and I am ready to engage with them, and we must all exercise patience. And we must all exercise patience, and we must talk, continue to talk on a whole range of issues. But in conclusion, where the law is deliberately being broken, the state and its authority must be exerted. South Africa is not a banana republic. It's not a banana republic. We can't allow a state of lawlessness. We can't allow a state of lawlessness where people dare government and say that we are basically going to render this unworkable and ungovernable. We must learn as a nation to live within the parameters of the law and raise our issues. It doesn't mean that you've got to agree with the Minister of Transport. It's not about me. Me as a Minister of Transport, I can be removed anytime. I'm not a furniture here. I'm not a furniture. I'm not infallible. I've been removed before. And what is important is the state. The state must remain. The rule of law must remain in this country. It doesn't matter. The rule of law must remain in the country. Citizens of the country, protected by the Constitution, must raise their issues. If they are not satisfied and they feel that Mbalula is intransigent, is a demagogue, is everything under the sun, there is a precedent in this country. I've said to Santaco when I met with them that I can take you to the president, to see the president. The president is there. We have met with church people in this country. They came to government and said that we want the churches to be open. What did government do? We opened the churches. But big churches have come back to government and said on their own volition, hey, we can see what this thing is going to do to our people. We are not ready to open the churches. What makes the taxi industry think that government cannot listen? I'm not government. I'm working with them. I'm a servant. And if this servant of the people, Fikile Mbalula, doesn't serve them well, they can go to President Ramaphosa and say, President, this young man you put there is not serving us well. President will listen to them and will convene me and will rain on me if ever I am not working on them. But I can tell them, I raised the issue of the relief fund. I put it on the table of government with my team. I've worked with them on it. I've raised the issue of review of regulations. I've put them on the table. Why then do we fight? When you've got an ally. There is no need to fight. Fight over meetings, did not sit. They were supposed to sit. Mbalula is not listening to us. Hey, wara wara. No, that's not true. We talk all the time, and we need to talk. I've got great respect for the leadership of the taxi industry. They've been there. I found them there, and probably I'll leave them there. but they've been around for a very long time, and they come from far with this industry. They spend their money. How do I go and dictate terms to the industry that I found? I must respect the owners. I must respect the people who own this industry, who have spent their money from nowhere to run this industry. And I'm saying that this is not the time for war. This is time for war against coronavirus. We are going to set the clock backwards. And it's going to affect ordinary people. This morning, some taxis, Minister of Police tells me, had to be stopped from Mpumalanga, long distance. And when the police stopped them, the taxi operators refused to give back the money. And yet the law says you can't travel long distance. And I said to them, just give me some time, I'll come back to you. Let me go to NCC. So that even those people there in that taxi, is your cousin, is your brother, is your wife, is your relative. We are Africans, we are blacks who own taxis. It's our business. Yeah, too. I've said, no, wait, because these are ordinary people. Can we show respect to ordinary people we are transporting? They are vulnerable, they've got no choice. If a taxi is not allowed to ferry people with 100%, and then I'm late for work, who am I to say no? Because I'm afraid that I'm going to lose my job. They will go, obviously. And then if the police stop it along the road, who's going to suffer? The taxi operator is going to suffer. The commuter is going to suffer. We all suffer. Who's suffering at the end of the day? It is our people. It is us. Now, there's no need to fight over these things. Let's talk. These things are on the table. They are receiving attention of government. They will be resolved. And government, in its wisdom, as always, will apply its collective wisdom on these issues, having received proper reports. It's not a given that everything that's served in front of the NCCC, it's a go. It's a go. No, it's not a go. There are people there who think, apply, ask questions. And if government take a decision in its wisdom that no. How long did it take us to give people antiretrovirals in this country? A long time. Because it is not a given. Even though there was a back and forth disagreement and the question about people dying, it was a long thing that involved society. Even now, coronavirus is not a government issue. It is a societal issue. Everybody has got a claim over it. Do we want soldiers on the ground? No. We don't want soldiers on the ground. But if you are threatening the state, you are telling us on national TV that you are going to render the country ungovernable. People must not go to work. Tires are going to be bent. Last week, I called Taiposh, president of Santaco. I said, President, your people are protesting, I can see. But can they do it in peace and not obstruct, taking people out of the buses in the morning? A mother who's got nothing on the table and is rushing to be a domestic worker somewhere in town, is taken out of the bus. Because taxi industry have taken a decision to go on strike. Now, that is a vulnerable person. Now, we can't, in our country, allow a state of lawlessness. Where there is no state, everything falls apart. Over issues that we can resolve. Even coronavirus will be stopped by humankind. The way it came, it will be stopped. And that's what is going to happen here. So there is no need to defy every odds and do everything in our power and showcase our strength and fight. We are ready to engage with the taxi industry and will continue to talk to the taxi industry. And we've got an open agenda to address all the issues for the taxi industry. And even the issues that have been raised now when I conclude have been taken up, and I'm still going to take up all of those issues with the banks and all of that to come to the party and help. People's taxis are repossessed. Going to address that. And working very hard around these issues that have been raised. And then I'll report to the taxi industry this week when National Command Council have processed all the issues.
Well, thank you very much. Excuse me. Thank you so much, Minister Mbalula. Permission to take one last round of questions? Thank you so much. Colleagues, please bear with us. The next round of questions is slightly convoluted because media colleagues are just asking about both the taxi industry but also aviation. But if we may start with Amo from Travel News Weekly. Amo's question is very similar to Neo's question from Jacaranda FM. Neo and Amo want to know the following. If possible, is the minister able to say exactly which level international flights fall under? Level 1 or level 2? Exactly which level do international flights fall under? Level 1 or level 2? That's from Amu. And then Neo says, if flights are safe for traveling, when will international flights resume? So that question about international flights. And then we go to Kate Nathan. Kate is from Travel News. Kate wants to know, given that corporates will be unwilling to let employees travel business due to the risk of infection, and given that there is no interprovincial leisure travel, domestic airlines are now in danger of collapse. And this is where the question comes in. Will the DOT help these airlines lobby for financial support from government until leisure travel is allowed? So will the Department of Transport help these airlines lobby for financial support from government until leisure travel is allowed? And then there's a question coming in from Eleni Giokos. Eleni from CNN would like to know, Minister, you say that the air filter protects passengers on an aircraft and that social distancing is not necessary or part of the regulations. And if that's the case, what scientific proof is there that even if someone has corona and releases the virus in the air, the filter protects someone in close proximity? So the question is about HEPA and whether or not there's scientific proof to validate that it does what Minister said is it can do, that if someone has got the virus or sneezes and coughs next to you, does the filter protect in that moment? She says even masks don't offer 100% protection. So that question about the filtration system and whether or not it is as trustworthy as it's been deemed to be. The last question is coming from Criselda, and I think the minister has alluded to this and has covered it, but so as not to censor Criselda, I will ask the question. The minister, you have the prerogative to answer or not, depending on whether you feel that you've given an adequate response. Criselda wants to know from SABC TV News, Minister, we can't ignore the taxi industry. You seem to acknowledge the criticism regarding allowing flights and not operating taxis at 100%. You speak about HEPA, but many could argue that it is not the majority of people in South Africa who fly, they use taxis. How can the taxi industry be made safer for millions then, so that it does not seem that this industry is being ignored? So saying that it's all fine and well to focus on the aviation sector, but should we not be making sure that the taxi industry is safer as well? Criselda's second question is as follows. Minister, when are you giving feedback to the taxi industry regarding your talks with the NCCC on the 100% passenger capacity? So when will the feedback to the taxi industry be expected? Those are the final questions, Minister Mbalula.
First, let me start with Criselda. There's no other industry that is ignored at the expense of the other one. Aviation at the expense of taxis. these two are incomparable. It's like mixing apples with potatoes. Wherever you arrive and you find them mixed, they will be identical. You'll see that is an apple, that is a potato. The travel in terms of aviation is totally different from a taxi. And in this particular instance, firstly, I'm not a scientist, and I'm not putting too much emphasis on HEPA as a 100% guarantee. But I tell you about its efficacy in relation to what health practitioners have actually said. And on top of HEPA, on top of the airline, you've got the mask. And then when you enter, you've got sanitizers. And there are extra measures that have been introduced. You don't touch on top of the aircraft. You don't, you're not gonna open Sawubona magazine. And then secondly, the feeding has now been amended. You are given a takeaway or whatever that you get, packaged food on top of the airline. So it's not like there's gonna be anything that exchange hands. You want to compare that with a taxi? First thing when you enter into a taxi, money exchange hands. Where did you sleep last night? What happened? Where do you come from? And all of that already. The possibility that you can be infected is already there. Because you exchange money. The money that we use, that's what you exchange up until to the driver. Secondly, sanitize. You've got to sanitize when you do that. Safety inside the taxi. 2, people have got to ensure that they've got their masks on. That's what we've been doing. And then the taxi itself must be disinfected. Now, does that happen in the aircraft? The aircraft is disinfected every time you disembark. When you get to Cape Town, you disembark, and then the aircraft prepares itself to come back. It's gonna be disinfected. And then that must also apply to the taxi. You have seen me go into the taxis, disinfecting taxis, launching that on the ground and so on, for health purposes. And then secondly, you have got to ensure that it is a 70% capacity, because I'm not sure even the 70% capacity in the taxi, you are addressing social distance. It's too close, given how our taxis are actually designed. But we have enforced that. Has it worked for us? It has worked for us. Has there been compliance? Yes, there's been compliance. There have been some few who all the time undermined the regulations and filled the taxis to capacity. Can you do that in aviation? No. The aviation sector operates differently. When you enter the airport, you go to OR Tambo and all of that, you will see all the measures are implemented up until inside the aeroplane. Now, the Minister of Police called me and said that people are not sanitizing at Mango Airline inside. Now, we explained that. Sanitizing has got alcoholic stuff, and on top of the aircraft, you've got to minimize the total number. It means you sanitize before you get inside the aircraft, outside, because that particular place, it is very, very, very susceptible to inflammable substances. It will burn on air. If you pack it with a sanitizer, you wouldn't know what actually happened. All those measures are taken into consideration. Are they 100% safe? Is everything 100% safe? We are told no. Every day we are told no. People got coronavirus, others sitting at home without even having to go to work and mix with other people. They got it. Those are some of the cases that have actually been there. Are we scientists to give qualification to these things? No. Can I argue with you about HEPA and its efficacy? No. But what does HEPA does? Ifuna viruses. If it happened that you've got coronavirus, you are on board and you don't know, HEPA will help us with that. It does not mean that you will escape. But should anything happen to you on air, there are extra measures. You will be taken at the back of the aircraft. Immediately when you disembark, you will be surrendered to the health practitioners to further look at you and test you. Remember, it is not only the responsibility of the airline to do that. Even yourself, when you are on board of the aircraft, you feel like you don't feel good, you report to the stewardess on top to say that I don't feel good, I've got these symptoms, which could be this. Then in that sense, you help yourself, you will be attended to. And that's it. And these are the measures we practice every day. And these are the measures we look at every day. Should that happen to the taxis? Yes. Remember, aviation has been closed for quite some time. There's not been any aeroplane. You can imagine an aeroplane to fill up from here to go to Cape Town. How much gasoline does it take? And at which capacity does it run at the present moment? Zero empty. Are you aware that there are aircrafts that are flying up and down now in the skies in South Africa and they don't even generate profit? And we say it's only after about 3 weeks that we have managed to register 50% capacity. Nobody is going to leave his house and go to an aircraft like it used to be for fun, for leisure and everything. It's strictly business. And that's what is happening. And aircrafts are making a loss. And the same as taxis have also been making a loss. So what I'm trying to demonstrate, don't compare apples with bananas and don't compare apples with potatoes. You will not get the answer right. Let's do what is right for one sector. Like somebody said to me in Social Nguve, Minister, leave Edgar's and everything else and focus on us in transport. And I'm trying to do that. A young man there in Social Nguve said that to me on the ground. He said to me that I must leave Edgar's and focus on transport. Our problem is not whether we get 20,000 or 50,000, is that my taxi, as I'm speaking to you, is being taken away by the banks. Can you help me with that? So that's what I'm focusing on. And feedback to taxis. Well, of course, NCCC will meet and will get the report on Wednesday. And then we should be able to report on those issues that are important to the taxi industry. And that should be before end of the week on the issue of the capacity and so on. So I'm pleading that we should be given that space to allow NCCC to apply its mind on these issues. And like I said, there is no hostility. Nobody in the NCCC is hostile to 100%. Nobody. I'm sure the question that will arise in that meeting will be a question of what are the health standards? What are you putting in place to get this 100% in place? What is social distance? That's what I was asked when I came over Zilius. All right? Kilima Fulu Fulu, very, very fast, 100% I announced. And then I was ridiculed. Who advised Mbalula on this 100%? Did he consider the following things? Now, if we are to introduce 100%, long distance, short distance, local, and all of that, what is the comprehensive view on this particular matter to show that we care for the lives of the people? I am saying from our side, we have considered those issues and we think that if we implement all the elements of it, we can implement 100% in the taxis. And we don't need a general strike and a gun on the government to basically do that. And that's what we need to do. So I'll give feedback on that going forward to the taxi industry after that particular meeting. Now, Kate, lobby financial support for airlines. We've done that. Financial and sectors in distress. I've addressed that issue. That all sectors in distress, and that is where the question of the relief for the taxi industry comes from. That's where it comes from. So, if we did not want to consider taxi industry, we would have simply said that, like everybody says, they don't pay tax. So why do you give them 1 billion even? Why do you give them, they don't even deserve a cent because they don't pay tax. You can look at the social media, people are aggrieved about this and that and so on. That's not what we look at. First, we understand that the industry is not formalized, and we understand that it will not become an automatic beneficiary to all what all formalized industries will benefit from. And that is why government went out of its way to introduce this relief. We put it on the table, and that's it. Now, that's what I've actually done, and that's what we have done, and this is what Treasury has approved, and this is what we're going to do going forward. As to whether there are other mechanisms of what you want to do for the taxi industry, yes. I'm in talks with the taxi industry. I'm going to Taxi Indaba with the taxi industry. I'm going to be discussing with the taxi industry all of these issues, professionalization and all of that. So let's leave this thing that somewhere down the line there was Joma Swanganyi, and then there was Blayton Zimande, there was whoever, minister around, and all these ministers are talking different language. There's no different language here. We are talking one language. And the only thing that has happened in transport is that ministers get changed. They get changed like masks in COVID-19. Because when this minister comes and then is supposed to drive formalization to the end, he's changed, chopped, gone. There is another one that comes. And then he's got to start afresh. So I'm not asking for my job to be maintained, whatever that is the case, because anytime people get to be changed, the fact of the matter I'm talking about is that this Department of Transport was depleted. I'm in Parliament now. I've got DDG posts here that are not filled up. This department. I've had a DG department without a DG for years. All people acting. Go to the Department of Transport acting. I'm closing all of those things. I employed the DG through lateral transfer to the Department of Transport. And that has been good for the department and brought stability. But we are now filling up all the vacancies so that we are a department that is able to respond to all the challenges that we are faced with. So, level 1, travel news, and level 2, international flights, when do they resume? They will resume when we are ready for them to resume. There are all other factors we are going to consider, looking at the global, experience, and whether or not we are ready to open up for other nations to come to our country. For now, for leisure travel and all of that. And I suppose at that time, fight against COVID should have gone in a different direction. So, a whole lot of factors that we need to look at. Are we ready to open up for other people from other countries to come here? For tourism, which has suffered a great deal. No sports is playing in the Republic at the present moment. There are no concerts. The biggest contributor to tourism in the country is sports. Rugby, cricket, people from Australia coming here to spend their money in our country. in Cape Town, in Durban, everywhere else. All of those things have stopped. They are not about to resume next week. Go and ask New Zealand. They've opened up for rugby and all of that in no time. About 2 people came in and there was a problem. There's Djokovic in the East and his wife. They were playing tournaments there and so on. And may they get well very soon. But it has been proven scientifically over and 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 over that transmission comes with group mentality. People in Johannesburg are busy organizing house parties. They are just inflaming themselves. All of a sudden, Joburg is skyrocketing because it's cold. Sondela mzala maziwe heke. No, it doesn't work. Stay at home with your kids. Ubumnandi abupeli. It will come. If you drink alcohol, buy it and drink it at your home. Don't go all around infecting people and having house parties, inviting people to your house. It has been proven over and over again, over, that the moment we gather in our thousands, there is a danger. They are playing football now. We're going to be playing football here. Nobody's going to go into the pitch without being tested to conclude that business. Now, why will I want to go and fight when we are supposed to be united? Every day, your friend, your cousin, your mother, your uncle, your magogo is gone. COVID. I've got comrades, I've got friends who have passed away because of corona. In Cape Town, they got buried. All of a sudden, this thing is knocking close. It's coming close, it's coming close. So and so is affected. I've got staff in my office that got infected. I had to close the office and do disinfection. It's knocking all the time. So we can't put a blind eye to this thing. It's not going to serve us. It's not going to serve humanity. It's going to kill our people. So I'm just saying that level 1 and level 2, resume of international flights, they will resume based on the scientific analysis as we go down our levels and whether or not we are ready for international visitors and flights in our country. At the present moment, we are evacuating. You come from South Africa, you are in the United States of America, you want to come back home, we can't deny you to come back. Even if you come from the epicenter and airlines are able to bring you here, we do that. But when you arrive, we quarantine you 14 days. We've been doing that every day. Taxpayers' money spent on that. People who have gone on holidays, they've been everywhere. They were brought back here in the country. We have to book them in hotels and quarantine them with their families, soccer players, everything. Others have come back from their countries who play football. There is a soccer player who was harassing me. He wants to go back to where he's playing. I said, flights are not moving. Others have come here by cargo. And so on, and so on. We have stopped all the shipping for passengers in the country. Nothing is moving. Nothing is moving in the country. So all of these things have been subjected to evaluation. And we have been forewarned that dark days are ahead. But we need to live with coronavirus, not beyond. We need to live with it. We are living with it now. It is full-blown in our cycles. You are not safe, even to your uncle, to your mother, to everybody. If you have not visited them in Zingi, don't go, stay here. Don't go to Limpopo and infect people. Their Eastern Cape is going out of hand. Okay? You leave Johannesburg here, in a car, you drive, you avoid cops, you go home. Ezilalini abantu bakhona bazihlalele bajika nelanga. Bazihlalele kamnandi usuka la eGoli uphethe lento le uyoyilahla pha. And all of that. So stay where you are, where you are. If you are with your kids, if you get infected, deal with it. Where you are infected, deal with it there, sort it out. There. Every day, it's like a movie. We are told, journalist, so and so is infected, and all of that. So, we can't afford this. There is no war yet. So, all of these issues will be resolved, Criselda. And I will meet with the industry and give the feedback. Ngelilonke, andilwi nabantu abangonoteksi. Andikho emfazweni. Injanjoku andizimiselanga uyingena lo mfazwe. Uba ikhona dithi chithani lawo manzi akho nkuku izawuxhelwa apha. Andizi, I'm not coming to that fight you are inviting me to. I am not coming, andizi. You can do whatever you want, andizi bobaba bamateksi akitli. Don't invite me to a fight, I'm not coming. We've got bigger things to fight for in this country working together. I'm not prepared to fight with anybody over nothing. We've got a problem here of corona virus. That's our biggest fight here we've got. You've got an ally in Minister Mbalula, but like they say, throwing a good love away. You might not know it now, you'll know it someday. So, I'm here for you. Ubani nani ndifuni, kulungile. It's fine. But now I'm here to serve you and then to report to the president as my boss and my leader. So I respond to the president. And if you think that Mbalula is not doing you right, reportani ku president madoda nimxelele ukuthi yini inkinga yami nami ngizawucela ukuba khona. Ngizawucela nami uzivela ukuthi ndenzeni ngaka madoda. Ngabulawa nje, ngabulawa ngabantu bakithi bangibulala bayangiqeda nya. Andikho emfazweni. Naki into adumela kaSuthu. Kiyaya ntweni kiye uyona straight ngqo. But this one angizi. I can't go to something that does not need us to fight. They want this help from me, I'm addressing it. I said 1 billion. This is what Treasury has given me after I went to request. Ngivelo icela le mali. Ngivelo icela. Babaqeda ukunginika bathi manje sizoyikhipha kanjani Mbalula le mali. Bathi sizokunikeza yona ngeSARS. Bathi kumo baba beTaxi cha Mbalula ngawuyoyibukisa lento lo ijonge. I'm still looking at that. Okay? And then ngebuka ezinye izinto, including the questions that they've raised about 100% and all of that. I'm sorting those things out. So that ngingabuyi futhi ngikhulume nge100% ngingakakhulumi nabo ogxabam nomongameli azwe ukuthi lento yenzeka Mbalula yenzeka kanjani. Siphethe impilo zabantu ezandleni zethu. Masinga accuse ngokubulala abantu. Siphatha inxaxheba ekubulaleni abantu ngoba abantu bonoteksi bayakhala ukuthi amasentshana aye phansi. So ngiyayazi lokho silimele. So kufanele ngibasize, ngiyazama ukubasiza and angibuyele emuva. That's my fight. So let's not fight, and then there's no need to take to the streets and run havoc. No, let's move forward. That was my last round. Thank you.
Masibulele kakhulu Mphathiswa. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for having joined us. We appreciate your assistance in disseminating this important information. That brings to a conclusion today's media briefing. Until next time, please stay safe. Thank you. Thank you, Minister.